Hey friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com, and today's video is not on, TDM or Italian or even Rider Waite Smith per se, but it's on my pursuit of plastic tarot decks. Now, I'm new to the game, and being aware of our friend Masha, I know many of you follow Masha, Musings by Masha, and if you don't, go check out her channel. I think it's just Musings by Masha. She's been using plastic decks for a really long time, and in watching her videos, I've been made aware, and following her on, certain platforms and tarot forums, I've seen that she's collected many plastic tarot decks. Now, she's also open to reading Rider Waite Smith or Waite Smith decks, which there are many, many, many more options for PVC decks. There really aren't that many for, the historic Italian or French or Belgian or miscellany decks, right? There's just not. And I've been to MPC, and I think I've gone through every single one of their decks to see which ones are in plastic and not. And there are, Conrad Stein comes the closest to having one, the Arnaud miscellany deck, but I'm not attracted to spending $60 some plus another $18 for shipping. I have others of his decks, and I know that they're quality, and I know that I don't want to, suggest that he's not a good person to buy decks from, because he's an excellent person to buy decks from. But I'm just personally not in a position to spend that kind of money on a deck that I'm not positive I really want. I just would buy it because it's in plastic and not because I really want that particular deck. Do you know what I mean? But at any rate, I have several playing card decks that are just plastic, and I've observed, and I like them. I like to play cards. My husband and I play cards. I play solitaire a lot, and I like to do it with the real deck, not on the phone. But I've observed that with these playing card decks, and they're cheap, I only spent maybe $10 or less on some of these plastic playing card decks. I've observed that the ink on the color, it chips off or fades away. As a matter of fact, let me go show you a few examples. Now, I'm just showing the cards randomly. I'm not picking on any particular ones. Okay, that one looks pretty good, but you can see, I think you can see some chipping there, right? Can you see it? So just from regular wear and tear, shuffling the deck, I think you can see how the paint, the color chips. Now, we could definitely use these decks for a long time, even if, some of the color has been chipped away. Here's an example of one that there's a lot of chipping in the hearts. You see all that? Plus, they're very inexpensive, and my heart's not broken, that kind of thing. But, when you're spending upwards of $50 on a tarot deck, you don't really want to see that, right? However, I did hear from Masha when I asked her about that, and she was great and answered my questions. And she said that the make playing card decks that she's purchased that were plastic, none of them have chipped, and she's used them many, many times in her conditions, which is in outdoor. Masha lives, I think, in Australia, and she goes and she travels. And for those of you who have been following Masha, she's done a whirlwind trip recently, where she's taken her decks, and they hold up. So I think we can believe that the MPC playing cards that are plastic, made of PVC, they hold up. But these cheap ones that we buy, on certain popular outlets for very little money, I don't think they hold up very well. Anyway, so just to do a little bit of homework, and I wasn't able to find a plastic deck in my historic deck, so I just bought a cheap tarot deck that was plastic. So I had really very limited options. So I purchased a gold foil tarot, which of course focuses on Rider Waite Smith or Waite Smith deck. And I figured I'd just check out what the plastic is about. And since I can't really get it in the decks that I want to get it in, I figured I'd check it out in a deck that I didn't have to spend a whole lot of money on. Now this deck was, I think I paid only $11 on it for it, and I got it on Amazon. So if you're interested in a very inexpensive deck, in the Waite Smith style, and you don't mind a little bling, this might be a fun deck for you. I don't mind bling. In tarot, I love my, I think it was a Visconti Sforza or the Tarot of Madrone or whichever deck that was from Lo Scarabeo, which is highly laminated and shiny. I love that deck. I also have a Golden Tarot of Marseille by, who is this by? Lo Scarabeo. And yeah, I know it's an anomaly that, TDM was never, that we know of, ever printed with gold leaf. But I bought it because I think it's fun and I don't mind bling. Okay, so let's check out this very inexpensive tarot deck available on Amazon, made of plastic. It's called Gold Foil Tarot. So let's check it out. So it's got a bit of a holographic thing going on with it. You see in the rays of the sun behind. I mean, if I read Rider Waite Smith, and I do read Rider Waite Smith. In fact, when I begin and I indoctrinate my grandbabies, I'll probably start with a Rider Waite Smith deck because it's got pictures on it. And I think, pictures on every card helps them understand. It's like training wheels, right? It helps them see what's actually happening, right? I mean, I must say, it feels nice. They don't feel like paper, they definitely don't feel like paper. And they're a little slick. They're a little slippery. Now, I think when I saw these on Amazon, there were a few options where they were, whereby there were maybe some really elaborate archways or, stuff like that, or black borders. I just got the simple gold border. I don't care for elaborate borders on a deck. So I usually opt for the least intrusive border I can get. And so I chose for the gold option. I think this is a pretty deck, I know some of you might think it's tacky. Ooh, look at that one. Ooh. And anyway, I was saying that, I have permission from my daughter-in-law and my daughter to teach their children tarot. Obviously, I've been creating tarot treasure chests for them. The girls probably each have about 10 or 11 decks in their little treasure chest, and my newborn grandson, this just born a couple, he was just like 2 months old now. He's got 3 already. And for all of them, this is one that I've gotten them. Because one, it's plastic, and it's probably the one that I'll teach them on because it'll attract their attention for being pretty, right? But it's also plastic, and, I think it'll, unless it's made like the very inexpensive playing cards, which is possible, this might not be created by the most reputable, or I don't even know the company who makes this, to be honest. They don't really admit to it, whoever they are. So it may not hold up, but, for $11, kind of who cares, We'll find out. Oh, for those of you who watched my last video, by the way, on where the lost object is, I did I occasionally do readings on helping me find lost objects because I'm always losing stuff. And I still haven't found my Christmas list. See that in the background? That's kind of pretty. And I wonder too how the dramatic sky might, what's the word? Affect or influence, the reading of a card, right? The Five of Cups. Does that sky add, another dimension to it? Anyway, I bought these, and I'm not opposed to teaching them Rider Waite Smith, with the idea and my intention that from here they'll graduate to using the historic decks, because that's my forte, right? Now here we have a 10, right? And we have the swirl in the sky. And if we had the Wheel of Fortune, I would think that the swirl in the sky and the number 10 being echoed again perhaps by the Wheel of Fortune might give us a sense of a cycle. So I can see how, the fun effect of the hologram, or holographic effect rather, might influence the way a card is interpreted. It seems like all the backgrounds do that though, doesn't it? And this card probably is one of the main reasons why I really want to teach my grandchildren how to use the historic decks rather than Rider Waite Smith, because the limitation of seeing Three of Swords, it's really hard to get past what this image makes the card look like it means, right? Just like having keywords, having illustrated pips is kind of like having keywords, right? It limits you. I mean, it's one thing to say, oh, 5 is an unstable number, and perhaps, there'll be a delay in hearing from your friend, right? For example, if the question had to do with communication and then a 5 of Swords pops up. But it's hard for them to get past, well, what's really happening in that picture? Because that's not what it looks like is happening. So with keywords and with illustrated pips, it's kind of hard to be able to see the cards, other layers of meaning for the number 8 and the Suit of Swords, for example. I rarely ever, I don't think, interpret the 8 of Swords as someone who's imprisoned, by their own doing, unless there's like so many cards overwhelmingly suggesting that. But otherwise, it's not the meaning that I would come up with. I can see the 9 of Swords being a very upset number for 10, especially if the question has to do with pain or sorrow or suffering. And these particular cards popped up. I can definitely understand how that might be an interpretation, but there are other interpretations. For example, it could be the end of a lawsuit, or something that, you're waiting to happen, will happen. But when a person sees these kinds of cards, even though they do look like an end or something coming to an end, especially this card, you don't necessarily think that it's going to be a good end, right? But it could be. And that's one of the reasons why I prefer not to use Rider Waite Smith decks. Because just like cards or decks that have keywords on them, they're limiting. Oh boy, but they're so pretty. Oh my goodness. Oh gosh. And of course, one of the primary reasons, aside from justice and fortitude being switched, one of the other reasons, or the crawl in my bone, or the crawl that bothers me rather, is pentacles in place of coins. Ugh, that kind of bugs me. if maybe they hadn't made these pentacles and they had been just coins, I would have been okay with them, but it kind of bugs the poop out of me. So time will tell as I shuffle and handle and mix the cards if you know, an inexpensive deck like this would wear well or not. But as I mentioned, we have Masha's word that the cards over at MPC, Make Plain Cards, they do a really nice job with the color. Ooh, wow, okay, check this out. Now they are slippery, so if you're not accustomed to using plastic decks, they may be hard to control. They're a little long. I have long fingers, but I can manage it. But they feel good. I'll tell you what, doesn't that sound nice? Let's see how they shuffle. Sometimes I do shuffle in the opposite direction because sometimes a deck will get warped in the one direction that you constantly shuffle it in. So sometimes I mix it up and I'll shuffle backwards. You know, never the last shuffle. I'll never do the last shuffle in this way, but I will do certain shuffles. Now, I've mentioned it before, statistically, I believe, that to thoroughly shuffle a 78 card deck, especially once it's been put in order, right? 10 to 11 shuffles are required. I know for a regular deck of playing cards, of 52 cards, only 7 riffle shuffles are required to thoroughly mix the deck. But you really need to do this with a 78 card deck. I think it comes to 10.5 times, so basically you have to do it 11 times. I haven't been counting, so I don't know how many times I've shuffled this, but since we're not doing a proper reading or anything like that, it doesn't matter. I'll do a couple random, and let's just see. Maybe some of us have counted that. I don't know. I didn't. But let's just see what kind of order we got here. So we have a 4 swords, 10 of batons, a 3 of batons. We have 2 batons, but that's not so unusual in a spread. 10 cups and a knight of coin. So in this random choosing of 5 cards, we have a pretty good random selection of suits and cards. We have no cards from the higher triumph order, but we do have a nice blend of suits. So we have 1 sword, 2 batons, 1 cup, and 1 pentacle. So I think it's safe to say that 10 to 11 riffle shuffles on a deck of 78 cards is all you really need to thoroughly mix your deck. All right. Oh, I want to tell you a couple other things. I have 2 decks that I'm waiting on to arrive, and I can't wait. I can't wait. One is by Artisan Tarot, and it is the Rosenwald Tarot that they've published recently. So that's coming soon. So I can't wait to show theirs. And you know, I'll compare it to the few other Rosenwald decks that I have. Excuse me, from other publishers. I'm not positive, but I think their version might only be 22 cards. I don't know if it's a full 78 deck. I can't recall. And then the other deck, I can't wait for this, is by Marco Benedetti. And for those of you who follow me and have watched most of my videos, a month or 2 ago, certainly through the summer, before I had surgery and probably before I got sick, I did a video on like, I think it was a challenge video that I did, where 78 Puertas challenged me to do a video of like certain things. And one of the categories was like my 5 essential decks. Of course, my Metelli was number 1. I love that deck. And one of the others was Marco Benedetti's Charles VI tarot deck. Now, I know that Charles VI deck, as it is called, not accurately really that, but as it was called, only had like 16 surviving cards. But to make a 78 card deck, Marco did extraordinary research, and he pulled cards contemporary to when the St. Charles would have been created. And he came up with a full 78 card deck. In fact, he was so generous that he included more cards than the 78 as options to switch out, So he used, I believe, cards from the Florentine style to complete his Charles VI deck. And I'm getting a handmade version. And I'm so excited. I can't wait to get it. I have the MPC deck. I think I got it from Crafts. What was it called? The other one that was before MPC. I think it was like, it had the word craft in it. They made playing cards too. And I bought it then. I've had it for a number of years, but now I'm getting a handmade one because I love that deck so much, and it's such a important deck for me. It's, and I use it for study, and I look at it a lot. And so I'm thrilled to be getting a handmade version. So I'll be showcasing that for sure, and give you a comparison too with the MPC one I have, or the Game Crafter one that I have, which I don't remember which outfit made it. I think it was Game Crafter. But I'll do a side-by-side to show you how there is a difference between, mass-produced card stock and then a handmade product. If you can afford the handmade product every now and then, maybe go for it, and you can make that choice. All right, friends, I hope this was short and sweet enough on the topic of plastic cards and other miscellany. And until next time, friends, peace and stay well.